Okay, I'm going to go over the station operation manual, and right now we're talking about common problems at the tower site and studio, silence alarm, and this is a sheet out of the manual. It's also an email. Follow along with that if you like. No audio from the studio is generally a silence alarm that comes over the telephone system. The audio vault has stopped, or electric is out at the studio, causing the audio vault to stop, or the T1 is down, or the audio board fader is down. The T1 being down would show up as red lights on the Harris Interplex. That's the black boxes on either side. But generally, it has been no audio from the studio has been a problem with the audio vaults. Now, when the T1 phone line is down, the most common problem is the phone company has cut the phone line. The backhoe lightning has knocked the phone line out. This will show up as red lights on the Harris Interplex at the studio and at the tower location. The solution for that is to call the phone company to do line tests. Now, if the line test passed and the T1's still down, then the Harris Interplex, which are basically T1 modems and receivers on either end of the phone line, would have to be looked at for problems, and you can call Harris Broadcasting. They have technical support in that area. Of course, when the T1 is down, there's two options: to switch the web stream on, which you do through the remote control. You connect to the tower site, you start the computer, and then you switch to it, and then you have audio over the air. Or you can play, if the web stream's down and the studio's down, you can play audio files at the tower site directly into the transmitter. There's a backup playlist out there. When the electric's out at the tower, which is the next thing here, the most common way I test to make it, because if the electric's out, there's battery supplies on the remote control, but if they're not working or if they die, then you're unable to connect to the remote control because there's no electricity. And they only last for a short period of time, and you may not be near a computer or wherever to be able to connect to the tower site. So one of the easiest ways to tell, of course, is to turn an FM radio on, and if there's nothing on WGCA 88.5 or whatever channel you're listening to, that means that the transmitter's off, and lots of times that relates to electric being off if there's no stereo light on. But if there is something, if there's a lock, in other words, there's a stereo signal there, but it's silent, then maybe the studio electricity is gone, or the STL is gone, or the audio vault's down at the studio. And in that case, with the electric out, another way to tell is to check the television station that's at the tower site. Turn it on your television. If it's off, well, then you know that the electricity is off at that location too. And since you share the same electric entrance, not the same service, but the electric entrance, if the TV's off, usually the FM's off. If the FM's off, usually the TV's off in regards to electricity. Because if you dial in and it doesn't answer, that's also another good indication that electricity is gone at the tower site because the remote control is not up. Now, if the electricity at the studio site is gone, the web stream's not going to work either, so there'll be silence over the air. So in that case, the only option to get something on the air is to play audio files from the tower, which you can connect to remotely. Okay, the next issue would be the satellite out causes. The satellite out means no satellite recordings, nothing going on. The satellite dish is out at the tower site. The audio is fed into the T1 line. It goes back to the studio and is recorded in the audio vault. The satellite receiver also records audio, records not the right word, downloads it and serves it back to JT at a certain schedule. And you can connect to the satellite receiver at the tower site through a computer at the tower site, and you can see what that schedule is. But anyways, generally what it is the surge protection that protects the satellite dish is blown. So you remove the surge protection, hook to the receiver, see if you got signal strength on the receiver. If you do, then you replace the surge protection, go on. If that's not blown, then the LNB inside the satellite dish is blown. If the LND inside the satellite dish is blown, then that needs to be replaced. There's some in there, and additional ones can be ordered. And let's see. Also, if the T1 is acting up, the audio can't make it reversely down to the studio. The audio goes in the reverse direction from the tower to the studio to be recorded in the audio vault. So the T1 even may be functioning, but if the return feed is not functioning, well, then there's an issue. So that's another big cause of problems over the years. After storms, the satellite would be out. Of course, one of the most important things to keep my eye on is reflected power, VSWR, which will show up as an alarm like during an ice storm. What I do by default in ice storms is I reduce power, sometimes to 1,000 watts, which is easy on the remote control because you just say you hit UPS reduce power, or you can just lower it down through the remote control. It should protect itself, it should fold back, but there's so much at stake that many times I don't wait for that. I just fold the power back myself when the antenna is iced. There's no de-icers or radomes up there. So the solution to that is to keep lowering power until it's within a safe limit, or going off the air. The other things that could cause that is the line is pressurized with nitrogen and the antenna is pressurized with nitrogen. So the nitrogen could be too low or too high, and then that blows the seal and then it all leaks out. So it should be 5 pounds or less. 5 to 4 pounds of pressure is perfect. Otherwise, you'll get a nitrogen alarm on the remote control, which you'll get sometimes when the weather changes because the nitrogen pressure changes. But it should not be over 5 pounds, and you got to take it apart and set it to do that. That's a big deal. If there's VSWR, reduce power. If that doesn't help, shut it off. That's a big deal. Transmitter site over temperature causes, usually there's AC air conditioning units in the building have failed. There's 2 of them. One of them has failed. Or the cooling fans have failed inside the transmitter. This will show up on the remote control as temperature alarm. You can open the doors. Reduce power will also reduce heat in an emergency, like down to 1,000 watts by hitting the UPS power lower. It's called UPS power lower because that was supposed to be when it ran off the UPS, you'd be at a lower power, but it's just an easy way to go to 1,000 watts versus 10,000. Reduce power, shut off if the building temperature cannot be under control, or replace the fan. Then you go to the backup transmitter, replace the fan, and turn it back on. Studio audio board failure. The main board downtown fails. You can still stay on the air by routing the audio output of the audio vault to the audio input on the Optimod, and I believe there's an extra cable there even in the racks to do that. Then you don't need the audio board. They can't do anything live, but the audio vault will still play and they can voice track. Transmitter failure. That could be a whole list of things. The first thing is, if you think the transmitter's off, that you have to go to the tower, look at the transmitter unit, look at the remote control, see what the faults are, try to troubleshoot it as far as you can, then call Harris Technical Support and have them troubleshoot with you on the phone, trying to figure out what the problem is as far as you can. If you cannot take it any further, Harris Technical Field Service can make a visit to the site. It is rather expensive. That's why I'm saying for simple problems, it needs to be taken as far as it can before they make an appearance. And sometimes they never have to make an appearance, but there's also a backup transmitter that can be switched on in that case. So that about covers this. Remember, this document is in the Google Drive. And so I'm going to stop and see how this looks.